Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Ema Roloff, and I've got one of my very favorite guests, Kieran, with me today. And we're going to be talking about trends to watch in 2023 tied to the workforce. But before we get to all the questions that I've got for you, Kieran, can you give everybody an introduction if they don't already?
Thank you. And delighted to be here, Emma. Look, my name's Kieran. I've been in business for the last 30 years. I spend a lot of time sitting between the business and technology teams, translating between the two. I've implemented some of the most famous, anonymous, worrying, beneficial technologies over the years that you can imagine. The one thing I noticed, though, it's not about business, it's not about technology, it's about the people in the middle. And that's the topic we're going to be talking about today.
You're just coming after my heart with that comment, Kieran. We all know. So as we head into the new year, everybody is making their predictions, and you made this post a couple of weeks ago about trends to watch in 2023. Can you share a couple of those? I know you had a pretty long list, and I'll make sure to link the post itself so everybody can dig into those. But can you share some of those trends for us to keep an eye on?
Yeah, let's take two and then we can jump into more at time permitting. The first trend that I mentioned, Emma, was that I think organizations are now discovering that there's a problem with work from home. So we come out of the pandemic with great hopes. And one of the things that great hopes as employers and great hopes as employees, we wanted a much greater work-life balance. And for many, that actually meant not working in an office and at home. It meant exclusively working from home. And organizations came along with that idea. And I think there was a couple of reasons why they did that. One was definitely there's a competitive labor market, and therefore companies have had to offer their employees more and more benefits to attract them. But employers also went, my goodness, we can save a lot of money on buildings. And therefore, when we look at our P&L in the next year, we can certainly enjoy a lot of benefits. But I think now they're starting to realize a year later, they're actually discovering now that maybe it's not as wonderful as we all think. So employees are going, actually, I always wanted to work from home. When I had to, I did. Now, actually, I'm missing the office and missing the camaraderie and everything else, and actually missing getting out of my house. And employers themselves are starting to say, actually, our workers aren't as productive because some people are still in their pajamas to 10 o'clock. Be honest, folks, we know who you are. They're not teaming as well. And by that, I mean, it's very hard to suddenly build teams over Zoom. Where normally you might be in an office, you might see someone you haven't talked to in a while. You might have a conversation. You might go out for lunch. You might go shopping with them. You might go for a coffee with them. All that stuff, all those little social interactions creates glue. And that glue binds teams together. And that glue helps create culture. And that culture helps keep people bound to an organization or to the colleagues. And that's a little bit looser. And I think there was some stats done recently that showed people hired in pandemic are actually 20+% less likely to stay inside of an organization than those who were actually brought into an organization and worked there every day. You're starting to see new interns, new graduates, new recruits coming into an organization and not being as productive because they don't know who to ask the question of. And when they do have the question, they have to book it into their meeting as well. So they're starting to see, as employees, actually, this is a bit of a struggle. I don't know anyone that's a bit more of a commercial transaction. It's not so much fun staying at home all the time. Employers are starting to see a loss of productivity, a loss of creativity happening, and a loss of culture and a higher attrition rate. I believe more employers and more employees will see the advantages of working in an office. And what you will see is not exclusive work from home in as many instances, but actually a hybrid workforce who work from home in the office. I think what you're going to notice is my second trend, a great awkward. And by great awkward, and I've had to go through it myself, when you go back into the office, your default is working remote. So immediately when you're booking an appointment with someone, it's not let's go to the canteen, the cafe, the coffee shop next door. It's actually let's jump on Zoom. And what you're seeing instances of is people who are on the same floor or just a floor apart still booking Zoom meetings to have conversations. And then when it comes to noise in the office as well, everybody's starting to get used to each other, because at home you could talk as loudly as you want, but all of a sudden you're back into shared office space. And therefore it's a little bit awkward wondering, actually, I've forgotten the rules. I've forgotten the etiquette of being in an office. Now I'm going to have to learn to work in an office one more time. And I think there's a tremendous obligation on ourselves, but particularly employee HR departments and businesses to actually try and help teach us how to reset and work in an office and provide those guidelines and that little bit of etiquette around what we should or shouldn't be doing, because it's been maybe three plus years for individuals who don't understand what it is to work in an office ever. Maybe they started their career, or what it's been like to work in an office because they've been away for quite some period of time.
So that idea of loss of productivity, loss of creativity is a little bit of a hot take, because a lot of people are very protective over their work from home environments. And there are a lot of people that feel that they are more productive, more creative, can do their jobs just the same way that they would in an office at home. So I think that's something that a lot of people are maybe hearing and thinking like, no, Kieran, don't wish that into existence. But I guess, do you have any more ideas around why some of that traction is being lost, and or how to help make that transition back to the office a little bit easier?
As much as I like working from home, I have to be honest with myself. I work really well at home. There's certain work that I can do at home that if I don't need other people and other people don't need me, that's the deep concentration work that doesn't involve teaming, doesn't involve group meetings or anything else. And I can innovate by myself in certain instances. And what I'm recommending is several things. So one, be very conscious of what you actually do in your home time and in your work time. So if you need to get teams together to create, then that could be, and I'm making up the days of the week. You go in on it, you stay at home on a Monday and a Friday, you go in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then where it's creative teamwork, where you want to thrash ideas around, where you want everybody in a room, project planning, running agile workshops or whatever it is, book those for the days that you're in the office. If you're doing team events and team building and whatever else, again, book those days when you're in the office. And then the days where you can work by yourself or you need that solo concentration time, then book that on the Mondays and the Fridays. If those are the days a week that you decide to stay at home, book that work on those particular days. So that's dividing the work up to the best location as is required. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you are going to get people to start to come back to the office, Emma, then don't just surprise it on them. Let's be honest, we have all built our lifestyles around hybrid work, or for those individuals who've worked exclusively from home, they have now built a lifestyle and a spend profile around the fact that they're remaining at home every day. So therefore the babysitters, actually the kids maybe are in the other part of the house, or maybe you're using different hours of the days to mind or care for them based on split patterns with partners. You suddenly aren't spending all that money that you might be spending on trains, planes, automobiles, or parking or food during the day. And you've actually allocated that money somewhere else. Let's be honest, we all did it for a period of time. Now what you're going to have to do is reallocate that money and reallocate time during your day, and watch how you actually spend or divide your time up between you, your partner, maybe your responsibilities or parents or childminders or whatever else it is. Give people 3 or 5 months to get used to the situation that they're going to have to come back into work numbers a day, a week. And what you might do is say, look, in 3 months' time, you're going to have to come back a day a week. Month 4, you're going to have to come back 2 days a week. And month 5, you're going to have to come back 3 days a week. But make and help with that transition as an employer, and then make it easy for people by providing the etiquette and the guidelines and the encouragement. And encouragement is not just, come on, let's do it, but give people reasons to come back into the office. Don't suddenly say, come back into the office and keep doing what you're doing and Zoom your colleague on the 3rd floor, but create the situation that allows that conversation, that innovation, and that creativity to happen. Organize team fun days in office, organize town halls or whatever else it is where you get time to spend with colleagues and learn about other colleagues, organize learning inside of the office, or all those things that are innately human that involve more than one person at a time, and book those into the days that you're actually there. But there has to be a real conscious effort around this, a real amount of time letting people know what's going to happen, a real transition time, and employers and HR departments in particular have a huge responsibility to make that transition for folks happen that little bit more seamlessly. What I do think, Emma, is people will quit over this because they will have built lifestyles around it. But I honestly believe that for the productivity, the teaming, the culture of organizations, they're going to have to recognize that they will lose people and they will lose good people. But in the long run, and for the wider benefit of the organization and the other workforce, this is the right decision ahead.
I think you brought up an interesting point that it was something that I did even prior to COVID. I was fortunate enough to have a hybrid work environment before, and I would save specific work for when I was going to be at home. And it was the type of work that I knew if I was in the office, I'd walk around chatting with other people instead of getting it done. But it also was the type of work that didn't require me to interact with other people. And I really struggled when I started working back at home and had to figure out, how do I recreate that work that I completed in the office with other people at home? And that's something, I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this that are like, yo, you're that person walking around the office interrupting everyone that makes us not want to go back to the office. But I think that's a really great piece of advice for people that are struggling to try and figure out how they find this balance again. Think about the work that needs to be completed and how you and what environment you best complete that, and start to chunk it out that way, because it'll make that transition a little bit easier for you.
I definitely think it will. And I love what you're saying there, Emma. You're to a degree pointing out something about yourself that probably wasn't productive. And this is the bit that I think, if we're going to take a cold, hard look in the mirror, I think if we honestly ask ourselves, are we as productive? Are we as teaming? Are we as organized? Are we as engaging when we're at home compared to when we're in the office? I think the answer for most people will actually be no. And it's very much I and employees, again, I put myself in that mix, are very, to a degree, very selfish about what we've got. But again, I think what has happened is previously, you have to come into the office 5 days a week was a mantra for years. The technology and everything was there. The bit that was probably missing, and again, welcome employers, was the lack of trust in your employees to do the right work at the right time. But again, if you can't trust your employees, that's on you. You've made the wrong mistake by hiring the wrong people. But somehow that great balancing and that great leveling up needs to happen again. I need to look at me and say, actually, look, I'm employed, I'm being paid money to do a job that involves my creativity, involves me teaming. Actually, I need to work equally as an employer. I need to recognize that I need to provide a bit of balance in here, because there's been a change in the world, there's a change in lifestyle, there's a change in balance and expectations and everything else. But as an employee, I'm paid to do a job. I need to do that job to the best of my ability. And therefore, if I can organize my lifestyle and my work style appropriately, as you're describing, then I think we've now suddenly got a great balance where everybody will actually move forward in a beneficial manner, as opposed to any conflictual manner or non-productive manner.
And nobody has the illusion that you're productive 100% of the day when you're in the office. There are coffee breaks, you walk to the bathroom, you have hallway conversations, but there's a different type of culture building and ingenuity that comes from some of those hallway conversations that you don't get when you're at home. And so I may be taking the same breaks in the office that I'm taking at home, but instead I'm scrolling TikTok, not engaging with my team or talking about problems that we have to solve, as opposed to being in the office, getting to know my coworkers, engaging in our culture, and or potentially having a random conversation that sparks creativity or solves a problem. So I think it's not that anybody has the delusion that the office is 100% valuable all the time, but it's a different type of break and a different type of mix up of your workday that I think is important to have balance of both.
100%. Could not agree more, and wouldn't even add that. I'll double tap that key on top and just agree.
So last question for you, Kieran. How do we move past the awkward? Because I would agree, when I was back in the office for some time, there was calls where I'd walk down the hallway and everybody was on the same Zoom call, maybe with one person who was working remote, and you could track yourself in the images of everybody's screen as you were walking down the hall. How do we move past some of that? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's like you mentioned it a moment ago, and you had to do the same thing. Let's divide the two things up. There's work and there's home. So assuming you look at your work, and this is something that I've done a lot of. I take every day of the week, I monitor the last couple of months, I look at all the activities that I'm doing. And then what I try and do is structure the activities that uniquely need me or need concentration time. And those I book in the Mondays and the Fridays. And I do my best for those. That said, I have a lot of remote colleagues or colleagues who work in different countries. So even on those days, I might have a Zoom call, but it could be a Zoom call, nothing to do at work either. It's just have a conversation to get to know someone in the other part of the organization, because I want to build a friendly organization. I want to build the culture, and it's up to me to do that as well. Now, let's go back to the office situation here. So I had the same thing not that many months ago, maybe 9, 10, 12 months ago. And it was exactly the same thing. I'm walking past people to go into a meeting room, and all of a sudden I'm the only one in the meeting room, and 5 or 6 people are sitting on their desks, zooming in. And I've probably walked past them. The first thing to do is, look, folks, let's get in a room. So all of a sudden, people didn't even think. You bionically do this. You're so used to getting on a Zoom. Let's have a call. I'll record Zoom. It doesn't matter where you sit. So consciously, you need to make the effort to get into a meeting room. The other bit is this: we are almost too used to working by ourselves, and that can be dangerous and it can be good as well. And a lot of people, like I'm talking about me, have been in offices for years. But remember, you might have interns, you might have new starts or whatever else who've known nothing but work from home and don't know anybody in the team. So as leaders and managers and seniors and teams, it's up to you to take that little bit of a lead and say, look, tell you what, folks, let's go and have lunch today. Let's just go to the canteen and spend a little bit of time together. If you don't have a canteen, what you can do is go nearby, have a coffee, grab a little bit of you time, downtime, lunchtime, or whatever else, and go and make that happen. Oddly enough, for some people, that can be amazing because what they might do is actually spend all day working if you weren't to provide that little bit of break. The other bit is just be conscious of your colleagues. You forget because you openly and loudly talk because you do that at home. It's just be a little bit of conscious for the first couple of weeks around having open air meetings or walking down corridors, shouting and screaming or laughing or whatever else. You should be laughing and enjoying, but out loud when everybody else is trying to concentrate and do that. The other bit is, and this is HR department, give people reasons to come in. When you're running your town hall, is your default to do it on Zoom? Is your default to do it inside of the building? A senior leadership team, are you going to go in and do that and meet your team? Not having seen them for a while, you should walk by leadership, walk around, see everybody is, spend a little bit of time getting to know them, whatever else, to show them that you actually care. Don't make some of the mistakes of the past where as leaders, managers, as individuals, you literally just do the same stuff on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, Tuesday, during the week that you did when you were in Zoom time. Just be very deliberate and very conscious for the first period of time about the activities that you do, the noises that you make, the energy that you put into knowing your colleagues. Give it 4 or 6 months. And by the way, you're back to normal. And if you have that wonderful balance, the work and the home office piece, and you really concentrate on this and keep an eye on it, then you genuinely do get the best of both worlds. The employer who you work for, who pays your wages every month, gets a very productive you and a very productive team. And you as the individual get that work-life balance and get those concentration moments and get productive amounts of work done at the bookends of the week. That benefits you, and you can organize your life around that as well.
Thank you for joining me, Kieran. I always appreciate our opportunity to sit down and have a chat. If you're not already, follow Kieran on LinkedIn and YouTube and all of his other areas. You're going to learn a lot about digital transformation and intelligent automation. But with that, thank you very much for joining us and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.